Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You made the trip here to 562nd episode. And I wanted to say thanks for stopping in to catch our show. It's a labor of love for us to not only do the show, but to talk about the plant cannabis. Our main thing is education, and we talk a lot about the legalization initiative that was just passed and the implementation thereof. So I'll talk about that in a minute, but real quick, I was looking at our YouTube, some of our YouTube shows and reading some of the comments on those, and I thought I'd comment about some real quick. One is somebody wrote in and said that they tried emailing and sending an email, but our link is broken. So I don't know. I sent a test email and it's working great. So if you write to dankbagman@hotmail.com, I'll get it. So dankbagman@hotmail.com. Felix S. wrote in, give the people what they want. Legalize cannabis. Keep up the good work. I appreciate it, Felix. It's always good to hear a good word. Travis W., he wrote in several times. I think he's not real positive on marijuana the way he wrote, and he was a little negative on Jeremy, so we won't read his comments, but I guess we appreciate him taking the time to write in. Jimmy J. wrote, awesome plants, great work, and thanks very much for sharing with us. Well, you bet, Jimmy. Jimmy J., you bet, and keep an eye open. We're going to be doing it again next year. We're going to be hopefully doubling the size of the garden and starting earlier, so it'll be exciting. Then JLV 730 wrote, wow, super nice plants. Thank you, you bet. They sure were, and it was a lot of fun. The unreliable narrator wrote 2012 question mark. Yeah, that's right. That was a typo, and so we appreciate it. You caught us, and we caught it already. So appreciate the information on that. And let's start talking about the implementation of Measure 91. The Oregon Liquor Control Commission is designated to administer that program, and so they're conducting meetings such and trying to figure out how it's going to all work out and how it's going to be done. They had their first public meeting on January 30th, and you go to the website and it says minutes for the January 30th 2015 OLCC meeting are now available online. We sincerely apologize for the poor audio quality. So you know, that's great. They got the minutes on, but you can't really hear what's going on. I mean, you don't want to listen to that god-awful noise. But anyway, after a great start, so we can't hear what happened to the first meeting. But the Oregon Liquor Control Commission is having what they are calling the marijuana listening sessions. They're traveling around the state. They want people's input on what they want and don't want, or their comments on implementation of the Measure 91 legalization of marijuana. So they're actually meeting as we speak, as we're sitting here doing this show in Salem on Monday. That's February 2nd. They're meeting from between 7 and 9. So I'm hoping they're hoping they're having a good turnout for that. My first thought well, they're going to schedule it from 7 to 9. Let's have so many people in there that they're stuck there till at least 10, you know. We should fill these big, I mean, they've got to see how much popularity is on this measure, you know, and they won't know it if they don't see it. And that's why it's really important that we turn out. And it's been kind of frustrating because I've been trying to rally the troops, and I haven't been getting anywhere in the numbers that I'd like to see. But anyway, it's really important. Now it's time to stand up. The freedom is here, and we're going to lose it because it's ugly what they're talking about doing up in Salem, too, the legalization law. So anyway, and then Eugene will be on, as we speak, it's going to be tomorrow, which, so I'll tell you about that next show. I'll tell you what happened and give you a report on that. So the next one that we can, anybody can really work on off of this show, if you hear about it, is in Medford. That's February 18th. Klamath Falls, February 19th. Bend, February 19th. Beaverton, February 26th. Clackamas, February 27th. And then there's the stuck page. And this is, oh yes, Newport on March 11th. So it's real important to get to those meetings and get your input. At least try, you know. I always kind of figure some of these hearings and meetings and stuff, they have their minds already made up. It's just a formality, but it may do some good, and it's sure worth a try. And at least you, this is a country that we have our free speech, so exercise it. A very egregious thing happened here. This is an article from the Oregonian. I got it off of the Oregon Live, which is the online version of the Oregonian, dated the 29th of January this year, written by Amy Wang. State bans child care providers from medical and recreational marijuana use. A state board that oversees child care voted on Thursday to deny child care licenses to anyone who holds a medical marijuana card or who grows, uses, or distributes marijuana, including recreational marijuana, after it becomes legal July 1st. The Early Learning Council's vote follows a 6-month temporary rule approved in August that requires child care providers to choose between their businesses or their medical marijuana cards. Let's step back for a minute and let's just look at this for a minute. Choose between their business or marijuana. What other medicine do they have to make that choice? I don't know of any, but apparently this is another example how medical marijuana users are segregated and discriminated against, and it isn't right, but it happens every day. We'll go on with the article. Specifically, the revised rules that are approved Thursday prohibit child care providers from holding medical marijuana cards. Prohibit child care providers from using any form of marijuana in a child care home during child care hours or when child care children are present. Don't have a real problem with that one myself. Prohibit anyone under the influence of marijuana from having contact with children, child care children. Prohibit anyone from growing or distributing marijuana on child care premises. Permit children with medical marijuana cards to be medicated on child care premises. If a home-based child care facility is also the home of an adult who is not a licensed child care provider and who uses medical marijuana, the drug must be kept locked up and in its original packaging if it was purchased from a dispensary. Any medical marijuana derivatives and paraphernalia also must be stored under lock. The rules are effective immediately starting July 1st. They also apply to recreational marijuana. Governor John Kitzhaber directed the Early Learning Center last year to address this issue, saying marijuana consumption should not and cannot be tolerated within a child care environment licensed by the state. We entrust our providers to maintain safe learning environments where our children can thrive, according to a council document. When the temporary rule was established last August, medical marijuana supporters rejected, saying child care providers can use other medications legally, including narcotics. Anthony Taylor, an advocate for medical marijuana patients, repeated that objection on Thursday. Medical marijuana in Oregon is a Schedule II controlled substance, and they didn't prohibit anyone else that's used a Schedule II controlled substance to manage pain or other conditions from caring for children, Taylor said. What happens if someone succumbs to their morphine and falls asleep on the couch and some child has a respiratory difficulty and stops breathing? That's at least as dangerous. Taylor said the rules also pose a problem for parents who may use medical marijuana, as they might be assumed to be under the influence when they drop off or pick up their child. He also called the rules discriminatory, saying other professionals who have regular contact with children, such as teachers and pediatric healthcare workers, have not been forced to choose between their jobs and their medical marijuana cards. The real effect of the rules, Taylor said, it marginalizes cardholders and asks them to not just step to the back of the bus, but to get off the bus altogether. So that's pretty well put it. Anthony Taylor pretty well spoke the way it was, and so that's a very egregious thing there that happened. Excuse me, I need to wet my whistle, as my dad used to say. And this is another one from our governor. Our governor was clueless on marijuana when he reluctantly signed the recriminalization initiative or law back in 1997. Well, now he's saying that the Oregon home marijuana possession limits are too high. Governor John Kitzhaber expressed concern Tuesday about how much marijuana Oregonians would be allowed to possess at home under the new legalization measure, and he indicated he might ask legislators to seek lower limits. The governor, saying he has many concerns about the initiative approved by voters, questioned the logic of allowing voters to possess up to a 1/2 pound of marijuana at home, but just 1 ounce in public. The amount you can actually grow in a home grow operation seems to me to exceed the amount that you're supposed to have legally. Kitzhaber told reporters, "I don't know how you enforce that." Backers of Measure 91, which was approved by 56% of voters at the November election, say they purposely set higher possession limits at home to allow adults to grow marijuana and make concentrates and pot-laced edibles. Just like home brewing of beer and homemaking of wine, you need to have reasonable rules for personal cultivators and hobbyists who want to introduce or produce their own marijuana, said Johnson. He said the measure allows people to possess 4 plants, which he said is what many growers believe they need to produce a reliable supply of marijuana. And Johnson said the possession limits in the measure reflect the kinds of amounts growers are likely to produce. Senator Jenny Burdick, Democrat, Portland, and the co-chair of a special legislative marijuana committee, said she also had some concerns about the home possession limit because of fear it would lead to divergence to the black market. "We need to take our best shot at setting the right limit," said Burdick. She added that she also is working on a bill that would prohibit people from growing marijuana at home if they were ever caught selling it illegally. Kitzhaber, speaking at an Associated Press interview to review the legislative session that begins Monday, did not say what kind of limits he wanted to see. Instead, the governor said he would lay out his general principles for marijuana regulation in a letter he would send later this week to the the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. In addition, Kitzhaber said he also expects to ask legislatures to make several legal changes to Measure 91. So we're going to drop that off right now, right here, but that's the way things are going. So we need to speak up, get a hold of our elected clueless people and straighten them out. The governor knows absolutely nothing about marijuana. None of these people that I just mentioned know anything about marijuana, and yet they're going to make the rules governing it. So lots of luck. We're going to be right back. So I will hope to see you here.
I'm a doctor.
I'm a lawyer.
I'm a journalist.
I'm a student.
I'm a teacher.
I'm a representative.
I have cancer.
The outdated laws of prohibition are more dangerous than the plant itself.
I lost my scholarship.
I was fired.
20 million arrests since 1965. This is getting ridiculous.
Our prisons are overcrowded with non-violent offenders.
We have the opportunity to change.
This is costing our country billions of dollars.
Making my family and I fight in a courtroom is difficult enough when I'm already fighting through chemotherapy.
There's no reason to be scared by tradition anymore.
We can stop this.
We can stop this.
We are the American people,
We can stop this.
and you have our support.
We're old,
Young.
straight.
Gay.
We're every race and nationality.
And we're not going to give up.
You can tax it.
You can regulate it.
Apply age restrictions.
You can create millions of new jobs.
We can save our economy.
President Obama?
It's time for legalization.
Legalization.
Yes.
We.
Can.
This has been a public service announcement.
Welcome back to Eugene Cannabis TV, the second half of episode 562. I wanted to make a quick note about the website growers2patients.net. That's can be a really good tool if we get more people aware of it. So we need to spread the word. If you're a grower in need of a patient or a patient looking for a grower, go to that website. It's anonymous, it's free, and it hopefully will help you get to where you need to be. That's where I found one of my patients, so I'll give it a shot. And that's growers, and then the number 2, patients, both plural, .net. That's growers2patients.net. So anyway, that's real important and can be a real benefit. So let's talk about, as we're approaching legalization, there's always been a lot of talk about driving under the influence of marijuana. So this came out of from High Times, off the internet, hightimes.com, written by Paul Armentano, dated December 8th, 2014. A new paper issued by the United States Highway Traffic Safety Administration advises against the imposition of per se impairment levels of THC. Per se DUI laws, which exist nationwide for alcohol and are imposed for THC and or the carboxy THC metabolite in more than a dozen states, criminally prohibits the operation of a motor vehicle if the driver possesses specific quantities of a controlled substance in their bodily fluids. Under these strict liability standards, drivers who test positive for even residual quantities of the drug or its inert metabolite in their blood or urine are guilty of a traffic safety violation, even if in the absence of any further evidence indicating that the subject was behaviorally impaired. However, according to the November 2014 NHTSA paper entitled Understanding the Limitations of Drug Test Information, Reporting, and Testing Practices in Fatal Crashes, per se DUI limits are inappropriate for substances other than alcohol. Authors conclude, quote, every state has enacted a law defining drivers who are at or above 0.08 grams per deciliter BAC as legally impaired, but there are no similar commonly accepted impairment levels for other drugs. Some state laws have established levels for some drugs in which it is illegal to operate a motor vehicle. The alcohol levels are based on evidence concerning the decreased ability of drivers across the population to function safely at these BACs. Such evidence is not currently available for concentrations of other drugs. The authors add, current knowledge about the effects of drugs other than alcohol on driving performance is insufficient to make judgments about connections between drug use, driving performance, and crash risk. NTHSA's latest paper is consistent with previous acknowledgments made by the Federal Transportation Agency opposing the enactment of per se DUI thresholds for cannabis. Speaking before the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Oversight and Government Reform in July, NHTSA's Dr. Jeffrey Michael acknowledged the available evidence does not support the development of an impairment threshold for THC, which would be analogous to that of alcohol. Dr. Michael's statements mimic those provided by NHTSA's online cannabis fact sheet, which states, it is difficult to establish a relationship between a person's THC, blood, or plasma concentration that performance impairing effects. It is advisable to try and predict effects based on blood THC concentrates alone, and currently impossible to predict specific effects based on THC, COOH metabolite concentrations. Nonetheless, to date, 11 states impose zero tolerance per se DUI limits for THC, and 5 additional states impose per se limits for the presence of the cannabinoid. In 2012, the White House National Drug Control Strategy Report called for the imposition of zero tolerance per se standards for cannabis in every state, including those states that allow for the plant's legal consumption. So Now there's a catch-22 for you right there, folks. We'll see where we go with that, but there'll be a lot more talking about trying to set standards and charge people with DUI for driving under the influence of marijuana. So it's coming, and just some of these things that it's just a natural, you know. And then here's a subject we talked about before, and this is back from, this is a High Times also, hightimes.com on November 18, 2014, about pot breathalyzers. Pot breathalyzer could distinguish users from impaired drivers. The slide, jump down to the last paragraph, pretty well sums it up. Says, the cannabis marijuana breathalyzer destined to become a law enforcement destined to become a law enforcement standard. While it is still too early to tell, the company believes their product will prevail over others where others have failed because, quote, instead of looking at consumption, which may have occurred anywhere from a day to 3 days prior to testing, as is in the case with saliva testing for cannabinoids, the device should allow law enforcement to see if drivers have consumed THC within 2 hours prior to getting behind the wheel, according to a press release. So they'll be still working on the THC and breathalyzer type tests, and a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of greed out there, so there'll be people working on it and trying to develop it. So that's just it's the way it goes, the supply and demand, you know. And this was kind of interesting, and I also had a guy contact me that's providing insurance. Insurers are covering marijuana. This is another article on hightimes.com dated December 11, 2014, written by Juliet Fairley. In the stream of commerce that is the marijuana industry, insurers face a unique set of exposures, including loss of crops due to pesticides, mold, and other hazardous toxins that can destroy the cannabis plant. Investing time and money into a crop and then having it go to waste is becoming more of an issue for growers trying to stay in the industry to recoup their losses, said Jason Drazen, CEO of MarijuanaInsurance.net. By building crop insurance policy, we can help those new and existing growers protect their investment. Premiums depend upon the insurer offering coverage. Premiums are rated out with sales, what the business is selling and what state the company is selling in, said Michael Cohen of Holland Capital, an insurance brokerage firm. We've received no claims yet because the vertical is too new. It's our first year, but inquiries are getting from marijuana and entrepreneurs are robust. Because the sale of marijuana is regulated state by state, insurers can draft specific coverage tailored to each state's marijuana laws. For example, in New York, under the Compassionate Care Act, insurers are not required to cover medical marijuana companies. Coverage will be a decision that insurers make on a case-by-case basis, said Leo Shallett, an attorney who represents marijuana businesses in New York. Insurance companies may take advantage of the fact that the Compassionate Care Act was written specifically for the chronically ill. New York took a cautious position towards legalizing marijuana, Cohen said. It might evolve, but for now, insurers will be very comfortable offering coverage to medical marijuana businesses in New York because the law is progressive and it has risk management out front. New insurance products are emerging to cover a slew of new businesses in both legal and non-legal states as a result of the movement to legalize marijuana across the nation. For example, there is crop insurance for field and hydroponic cannabis growers, traditional commercial insurance that covers dispensary, transit, medical malpractice policies for doctors who treat their patients with marijuana, and gap coverage for doctors issuing recommendations rather than traditional prescriptions. Insurers are looking into specifically adopting their medical malpractice wording to recommendation rather than prescriptions, said Cohen. We're also offering malpractice policies for lawyers that represent marijuana companies, because so many medical marijuana patients register online for home delivery in legal states such as Washington and Colorado. Cyber insurance is vital to dispensaries. With the online threat of hacktivism growing annually, our cyber policy helps regulate the marijuana industry and protect businesses. Hacktivism is when hackers access a website or computer system to communicate a political or social message. The only difference in a liability policy for a marijuana business is having to pay more in premiums because it's a higher risk factor. So, just like any other product, the insurance is available. It's just like the banking problem. In Colorado, businesses were having trouble finding banks that would take their business because they were concerned about the marijuana being illegal federally, and so they were concerned that the feds would come and seize their bank. There's been some changes on that, and I understand that they've got some banks that are going to be working with the permission of the government, I guess, so they won't have to be working with cash. But that's been one of the problems that a lot of businesses have been required to work with cash, and that causes all kinds of problems with security and accountability, and it just makes it a whole lot more difficult, especially you need to try to pay debts across the state or something. And so anyway, that's just one of the problems that comes up in our unique situation in trying to implement legalization. So anyway, please get on mailing lists and listen up, because when we call, we're going to need the rallies in Salem. We need the people to go up there and show our support. Thanks for watching.